Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management. I'm Harry Donahue, and we are back week 2 here in Far Hills, New Jersey at the USGA headquarters at the Research and Test Center. We're looking at what conforms and what doesn't conform when it comes to your game of golf. Now, you look at this. This is called, believe it or not, the kneel and pray putter. Yeah, that's really a putter. And, well, obviously, you'd have to kneel down, say a couple prayers, to use it. But do you know what? It doesn't conform. You know why? It's not at least 18 inches long. Yes, there are such rules when it comes to the length of your golf equipment. We'll be back in just a moment to explore what doesn't and what does conform when it comes to golf here at the Research and Test Center of the USGA on Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management.
Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management, helping you build, manage, and preserve wealth. And by the Philadelphia Section PGA, experts in the game and business of golf.
Honey, what are all these cash rewards?
Stellar Checking with Smart Rewards. We earn cash on check card purchases and when we transfer money from our Stellar Checking into our savings account.
Cool. How should we spend them?
Stellar. Stellar.
Stellar!
Probably groceries.
Stellar Checking from Susquehanna Bank. Earn cash rewards whether you're spending or saving. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management. Once again, we're up in Far Hills, New Jersey at the USGA headquarters, specifically at their test center with John Spitzer. John, good to see you again. John is Managing Director of Equipment Standards for the USGA. Now, last week, we were here with John, and he took us through the process of what either does or doesn't conform in terms of a golf ball. And we saw all of the multiple testing that is done on that. And now, John, the actual equipment in terms of the face of a club, the shafts, grips, everything to do with the actual equipment. And you have, for instance, right here, let's take a walk
This
down
is where
here.
we keep our archives of all the clubs and grips and shoes
And it dates
hats.
back how long?
All the way, we have equipment all the way back from 1948 that we can use as a precedent. If we have a ruling that we say, hey, did we see a club like that in the 50s? We can go back and find that.
So as we walk down here, we see what manufacturers have submitted over the course of years, okay, obviously this is a driver head. And it was, what is that?
That's a Lynx Predator.
Predator.
Right.
Okay. And the year is 2004.
Manufacturers can submit just the heads, and we prefer that because the shafts, for instance, for a set of irons are basically the same shaft with different lengths. Or they can submit full equipment. But we don't just get heads. You can see there's some shoes in here.
See that? Yeah, there's some shoes.
You might find some different things like devices with, here's a, it's probably broken, but this is a putting guide, so you can read the green.
Now, you made an interesting comment to me. Somebody one time was talking about the square-headed drivers, and you went back to the bins and actually found that they had been approved years ago.
Right. What happens is the golf balls, we give those away after about three or 4 years to junior golf programs to try to get kids involved in the game. But with clubs, we keep them forever. And when the first square drivers came out, people would say, oh, geez, that's not traditional. That doesn't look like a golf club. So we went back into these archives, and we found that we've had some 40-odd clubs that were actually submitted that had a square shape that were approved. So there was lots of precedent that said that was traditional and customary. So we were allowed to let that one go. Didn't have to worry about its conformance, at least the way it looked.
I would have to say probably one of the biggest steps in terms of conformity was the change from the wooden persimmon club to the metal head driver.
Yep.
And I want to go back, I want to say it was probably, what, late 80s or even
That's right.
before that?
That's right, 1989.
TaylorMade? Were
TaylorMade,
they the first ones?
Yeah, they had the Pittsburgh Persimmon. And you recall, we're both old enough to recall that when you first came out with that metal wood, that steel wood, it was a little bit smaller actually than the...
A lot, like today would probably be like a 4-wood.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is they had to, because the head is hollow, they have to make the walls really thick in order to survive that impact. When you hit a golf ball with a golf club, there's basically 3,500 pounds of force or pass between the club to the ball. And in order to survive that kind of loading, they had to make the walls thick. And if they made them too thick, and big, then that club's going to be too heavy for us to swing. So it was really small. But then lo and behold came titanium. Titanium's a much lighter, stronger metal. They were able to make the heads bigger and bigger, and we've all kind of benefited from that, because now when you hit it off the toe, it doesn't have quite the bad effect that it used to when you were hitting it with a persimmon.
I love the sound.
Yeah,
The sound was a big marketing tool, I think.
You're exactly right. And you remember when they first came out with the TaylorMades and whatnot, they used to fill them with a foam. And so they'd fill them with a foam because they didn't think people wanted that sound. And now the manufacturers actually have acoustic engineers that are fine-tuning that sound to make sure that it's nice and what the golfers like to hear. There were some clubs a few years ago that sounded pretty tin canny, and they found very quickly that golfers didn't like them.
They didn't want them.
Right.
Okay, John, now I really want to find one of those old style or original style TaylorMade driver heads. Let's see what we can do. Huh?
That was in the late 90s that we saw those.
Not there.
Here,
Oh boy.
okay,
Here it is.
Here's a tie bubble too, a little darker color than the original burner.
Right. How about
Dick
that?
Ruggie was the former technical director, was one of the inventors of this when he was back at TaylorMade.
And he was the man who
He preceded me in this job.
as
Yep.
the managing director. Yeah, and this was the beginning. Now,
Well-
when you look at that face, that's like a rescue club today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this really turned the corner for TaylorMade. I mean, that became a very, very popular club.
Well, there's lots more here at the Test Center at Far Hills at the USGA Test Center on equipment standards. We saw with John how club head driver heads have changed, and of course shafts. Nobody plays with hickory shafts anymore. Everything is, well, graphite for the most part. More on equipment and standards from the USGA on Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management.
At this moment, across the country, families are packing their bags for a getaway. And no matter where they end up, they'll all be home by dinner. Plan your own at playgolfamerica.com. From finding fun and affordable programs to finding advice from PGA and LPGA professionals, playgolfamerica.com has a way for you to get away. Visit today for details. playgolfamerica.com, your link to the game.
Well, we're back here at the Test Center at Far Hills of the USGA with John Spitzer, and John is the Managing Director of Equipment Standards. John, I just teased the fact about how shafts have changed, and I know you said you don't do a lot with shafts, but just in the progression of shafts from hickory to steel, and now a lot of people use, obviously, graphite.
Absolutely.
But you say you don't regulate that too much.
No, we don't regulate them too much. We do over here measure the bending and twisting properties. And so what this machine does is it twists the shaft in two different directions. And what this machine over here does,
So that it doesn't bend, there are
so
certain
it twists
limits?
the same one.
Okay.
If you have a fade or a slice and you want to correct it, you're going to have to do that with your local PGA pro rather than buy a shaft that's going to do that for you.
And in this room, you have various tables, and each one does something with a club.
That's right. This is all dedicated to the club, and each one looks at the various components. Unlike the golf ball that we test as a whole, the golf club, we take it apart and test the various components of it individually, and we'll look at the different properties of it to see if they conform. This is our groove station, and what we do here is we'll get clubs in from the manufacturer's irons, and we'll test the grooves and measure what the grooves are. And the way we do that is we'll take a golf club and we'll put a casting dam on it, and it's got some magnets in it, and it's got some different pins in there to make sure that you actually can locate it with the grooves. And then we fill it with a rubber compound, and what that does is that creates a mold of the grooves. We'll put another compound that's black on top, and then you can see the profile
Of the groove.
of the groove.
And there are restrictions about how
There are-
wide the groove can be.
That's exactly right.
And
There's
how much distance
how
there can
deep
be.
and how sharp the edges
And that
are.
was, I don't want to mention the company, but there was a classic case that goes back
that
a
was
few years.
in 1989. We had a little run-in with Ping on that, and then in 2010 we found out through some of our research that additional spin could be gained by the modern club head that had really deep and wide grooves, and they were very sharp. So we put some additional measurement and restrictions on the grooves. And so after we cut it and get that profile, we just stick it on a scanner, and then we use the scanner to make the measurement. And I'll just move over here, and you can see there's the picture. We use image recognition software that identifies where the profile is. and then we measure. What's the width of the groove? What's the depth of the groove? How sharp is that edge?
We can see how technology with the computerized looks that you get on something like this. What did they do 35 years ago to measure grooves and things like that?
That's a very good question, and it's kind of funny and kind of embarrassing at the same time. Up until 2010, the requirement was that the grooves shall not be sharp as determined by a finger test. So the test before to see how sharp the groove was this.
Wow.
That
So
feels-
you've gone
feels
from
pretty
that
sharp
to this.
Yeah. We've improved a little bit. This is where we measure a couple of the other attributes of club heads, and one of the things that we control is volume. As Harry mentioned early on, the very early persimmon club heads were smaller, and the Pittsburgh persimmon from the late 80s was actually a tiny bit smaller than that, and with titanium, clubs got larger, and we put in a limit on volume. Now you might think that the way we measure volume is to put it in a beaker and see how it spills, but we're a little bit more sophisticated than that, although this method has been around for many, many years. And so what we'll do is we'll dip it in water, and we'll measure what it says on the scale, and that says 361 grams. And what happens is that means this club head is 361 cubic centimeters in volume. This is Archimedes' principle. He was sitting in the bathtub one day. And,
With a golf club?
Well, no, he had the king's crown, and he wanted to decide whether it was plated in gold or solid gold. And so that's when he said, "Eureka, I found it." And I think he was talking about the solution, not anything else. But the idea is that when you put something in, and we've all done this with soap or when you're in the pool with a floating ball, when you push it down, there's a force that tries to push it out of the water. And the reaction to that force goes into this scale. Water, by definition, is 1 gram per cubic centimeter. So when we measure it as 360 grams, it means it's 360 cc's.
That's where that engineering background comes.
That's it. That's right. That's high-powered engineering all the way back from Archimedes' day.
Okay, what do we have at this table?
Well, I think a lot of us have heard about coefficient of restitution or spring-like effect in clubs, and that was really a manifestation of this titanium that's come into club heads in the larger size of the club. And the idea, coefficient of restitution, is basically a measure of how efficient the club head is at passing its energy from the club to the ball. And so we put a limit on that of 0.83, which means that basically 83% of the energy from the club head can get passed to the golf ball. It can never be 100.
Now, why 0.83?
Well, we did that to be fair, because what happens is there are a number of golfers who had already plugged down $400, $500 for a driver, and they had them in their bags. We looked at everything that we had tested to date, that we put in this rule in 1997, and we said, we're going to draw a line over the top of that. We don't want to take clubs out of golfers' bags who bought them trying to conform to the rules. So we'll draw a line in the sand and not allow it to go any further. So that's where the 0.83 came from. But to measure this, all we do is we have a pendulum that has a radius of a golf ball, and it's got an accelerometer on the back, and we're basically measuring the amount of time that this pendulum bob and the club head are in contact. So let me hit the collect data here, and we'll test at 9 different impacts between this pendulum bob and the club. And then we find out where they first make contact, that's the green line, to where they stop making contact, and that tells us how flexible the club head is. The longer they are in contact, the more flexible it is. And if you think about this as if we were to jump up and down on this floor, what would happen is our feet wouldn't be in contact with the floor very long. But if we were on a trampoline and we hit the trampoline, our feet would be in contact.
Sink in.
All the way down, all the way to an end. So longer contact time, more flexibility.
Well, it looks like we're at the end of the tour, the end of the tables here, John. What do we have here?
Yeah, this is one of the final parts of your club components. This is the grip. And we also have rules on that. The grip cannot be molded for the hands, and what this device does is it'll twist and rotate the grip at the same time it marches along. And so we'll have a very accurate 3D picture of what the grip looks like, with the idea being that you have to be able to place your hands. Gripping the club and having the face square is one of the key elements of skill in the game of golf. So we want to make sure that we preserve that. So you can't have a grip that's molded for the hands like this grip has a mold at the end that allows you to place that meaty part of your hand in there every time. This grip is non-conforming.
You know, there's a certain table, I call it the no-no table here at the test center. And we're going to be back in just a moment with John. You'd be surprised at some of the things that the USGA has decided are non-conforming and belong right in the middle of the no-no table. We'll be back with John to look at that as Inside Golf continues, presented by Susquehanna Wealth
Because
Management.
it has these embroidered patches on the shoulders.
It's not limited edition, not cast conditioned, not exclusive or extra, nor is it private reserve. It is, however, a rare breed. American lager from an American-owned, family-operated brewery. Since 1829, we kept it so simple, we're still in fashion. Fancy that. America's oldest brewery, Yingling.
When you step out, make sure you go all in. Because at Valley Forge Casino Resort, we're rolling out the action. And we'll bring it all to the table. So take us for a spin and go all in for the win. Valley Forge Casino Resort. It's safe, it's chic, and only a shuffle away from the main line.
Over the last couple of years, Inside Golf has developed a special and unique relationship with the Valley Forge Casino Resort, mainly through the efforts of Jake Wagner. Now, Jake, you look at him, he's a PGA professional, but he's also a marketing specialist with Valley Forge Casino Resort. And now, using your golf background, you've developed a new program. Tell us about it.
Thanks a lot, Harry. Well, yeah, over the last 2 years, I've been able to play some of the greatest country clubs out there. And I've really realized that I want to give the everyday golfer an opportunity to play these courses. So over the last 2 years, we've built the Professional Golfers Network. It's called PGN Plus, and we're launching on April 11th, right around the Masters. It's going to be a huge event. We're doing at Valley Forge Casino Resort. We're having the launch event. That'll be the first day that we're listing tee times, and we're going to give the everyday golfer an opportunity to play their bucket list.
Well, tell us about it. I mean, how would somebody like myself or our viewers get involved?
Well, it solves two major problems. It allows the courses to remain private and exclusive while opening up strategic windows of tee times for our exclusive network of golfers. At the same time, it builds a reciprocal membership for the world of golf. So it allows people to be able to play courses when that course decides.
So people that don't belong necessarily to a club get the opportunity to be a member for a day.
Exactly. There's three main things we want to do for these courses. We want to generate additional revenue from these tee times, we want to do increased merchandising, and we want to increase memberships. So more exposure leads to more memberships.
And without getting into too much detail, are they some of the best clubs in the area that will be involved?
We're very excited. I think everyone's going to be very, very interested in the courses that we're going to offer. So wait until you see April 11th. It's pgnplus.com, and I think it's going to be a revolution.
Now, I'm sure you've had conversations with golf professionals in the area. What's been the reaction?
I think there's going to be a little pushback at first. We're expecting that. If there wasn't that pushback, then this would have been invented already. So I think it's going to be a new era in the game of golf.
There's got to be a first for everything. Tell me about the event that's coming up later this week here at the Valley Forge Casino Resort. How does somebody get involved in that?
So yeah, on April 11th, it's the Friday of the Masters. We're doing a golf simulator event where we're basically bringing a simulator. We're bringing in the Philadelphia PGA. I know you guys are also going to be here to cover our launch. It's going to be great. We're going to give people a chance to hit a hole-in-one on a hole that we haven't decided yet, but it's going to be a really great event to get people out, kind of kick off the golf season, have some live coverage of the Masters, and really get everyone pumped for the golf season.
Well, I know this has consumed a lot of your time, Jake, getting, in addition to everything else you do, getting ready for this big kickoff event. One more thing, how can people maybe get involved with a website to get more information on what's involved?
Well, we're going to be live in 1 week, so pgnplus.com is the domain, and definitely keep an eye out. I think this is going to be a new era in the game of golf.
Jake, thanks a lot. I know our viewers will be interested. pgnplus.com. Jake Wagner, something new and different for Philadelphia area golfers.
Welcome to my island, the island of St. Kitts, where the word spectacular is an understatement. Behind me, the Marriott Beach Resort and Casino and North Frigate Bay. It has the wonderful Robert Trent Jones Golf Course and South Frigate Bay leading to the island of Nevis. It's an island paradise and a paradise for playing golf with the traveling golfer. Mike Cole, Director of Golf Operations here at Royal St. Kitts Golf Club, native of Kalamazoo, Michigan, but been in the Caribbean for a while, spent 12 years in Jamaica before coming to St. Kitts. Mike, what's it like when you bring people from America, Canada, around the world to the islands to play golf?
Our goal is when we get them here to showcase, the genuine care and hospitality that we can offer, provide a golf course that's in great condition. We have to make sure we're on our A game, but it's the little touches that set us above and beyond from the rest.
This is where old meets new. In the historic capital city of Bastir, there's a modern cricket stadium, lighted jumbo Megatron, and of course in the foreground, a beautiful football stadium, or as we call it, soccer.
Welcome to Port Zante in St. Kitts. This is downtown Bastir, and Port Zante is the fastest growing cruise port in the entire Caribbean. Port Zante is growing to the extent that we have to increase our berthing facilities, so we're going to build a brand new pier so that we can accommodate 4 of the Oasis class ships, the largest ships in the world. We will be able to accommodate 4 of them at any one time. Right now we can accommodate 2.
St. Kitts is an emerging destination, building, bustling, transitioning from the old sugar mill industry to tourism and golf.
I love St. Kitts. It's beautiful here. It's gorgeous. It really kind of has it all. It has the scenery, it has the mountains, but it also has great golf and the ocean. Some of the other islands, they might have the ocean, but they don't quite have the mountains that you see here. Kind of almost Hawaii-esque in a sense, and it's just beautiful. Lots to do outside just the resort too. There's just tons to do here.
You might think you can see the entire island of St. Kitts from here. Well, we're pretty close. It's a small island with a lot of big views. Some people say it reminds a bit of Hawaii, but it has its own definite character, a jewel of the Caribbean that's being polished every year as people find out about it, and it's being polished by the addition of golf. We hope we've shown that to you on The Traveling Golfer, and wish you a welcome trip to St. Kitts sometime in the future.
There can be only one number one. One outperforms. One outplays. The one shot. The one moment that separates one from the rest. That's when one redefines distance. That's how one earns number one. R1, the one driver played by more tour pros than any other. From TaylorMade, the number one driver in golf since 2001.
At this moment, across the country, families are packing their bags for a getaway. And no matter where they end up, they'll all be home by dinner. Plan your own at playgolfamerica.com. From finding fun and affordable programs to finding advice from PGA and LPGA professionals, playgolfamerica.com has a way for you to get away. Visit today for details. playgolfamerica.com, your link to the game.
Free enterprise is the engine that drives our economy. Everyday businesses, big and small, work to make life better for their customers and a better life for themselves. Susquehanna knows successful businesses need a strong financial partner, someone who can help keep your business running at peak efficiency. The people of Susquehanna Bank, doing what counts for businesses like yours. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management, as we are about to wrap things up here with John Spitzer at the USGA's Testing and Research Center in Far Hills, New Jersey. And John, I promised everybody we would take a look at what I call your no-no table. This is a table that has on it various and sundry parts of the game of golf that the USGA has deemed as non-conforming. Now, why don't we begin? Let me see. First of all, a pair of shoes. Now, why would this not conform?
Well, it's a couple of reasons. First, it's building a stance, and you're not allowed to build a stance. What you have to do is you take a stance, fairly take your stance. This actually builds the stance up at the sole of in the front of your foot to keep your weight back, and a guy that's front end loaded like me needs that. So that's non-conforming for building a sense. That's out.
Okay, now you would think a golf visor?
Yeah, well, you know, one of us, or most of us, have a problem with putting where we peak, and so what happens is when you hit your golf shot, you do that, but when you putt and peak, you put that down so you can't peak.
Okay.
So it's like the blinder. No, you can't do that. It's like the blinder that you'd have on a.
That's very becoming to you, though.
Well,
I'll tell you that. Now, what do we have here? Another
this is very
hat?
This is very tin cupish, and you can see from some of these things that.
Yeah, Bill Murray, I think, left that here, didn't he?
That's right, and many of the things are made by folks puttering around in their basement or garage, and so what you do here is, you actually have the tee, and you're supposed to let that.
No, you can practice with that, but you can't take it out on the golf course.
Can't. And let me show you this too before we go, Harry, on that putter. Same theme. This is a guy we saw. That guy that was who submitted that was puttering in his garage. This guy actually put a lot of work into it and put some money into it. This is called the stabilizer. And so what you do, it's got the same idea, but it's got a laser in it. I have an obstruction, but
oh my goodness!
But
so he actually tried to sell these things.
That's right, and that you're supposed to use the laser to go over your golf ball, so make sure your head's in the right element.
Okay, now here we have what looks to be like an average golf shirt, albeit a small size, but there's a reason why this doesn't conform, and it is.
That's because it has these embroidered patches on the
shoulders.
On the shoulders, and they're an artificial aid that makes sure that you make a full shoulder turn. So you put this on. And you turn and you look and say, there's my shoulder, and then you make sure, there's my shoulder, and I had a nice full shoulder turn right through the golf.
Get out, that's an easy one. All right, now this has a little Jack Daniel's bourbon or whiskey at the end of a putter, and why doesn't this make it?
All parts of the club must be fixed, and that Jack Daniel's is not fixed in there right now. And in addition, for putters, we allow multiple striking faces, 2 striking faces. Like
front and back?
Right, like you'd have on a bullseye putter. But this one actually has 4. So it would have this one, and then the 2 ends. And this would be kind of a croquet mallet. So that would be another reason why this particular club would be non-conforming.
So in order for this to conform, I'd have to drink the contents.
That's correct.
Before I started my round, and somehow make these 2 ends not be a putting surface.
That's exactly right.
And then I could take it out there.
Yep.
I wouldn't be as thirsty, but I'd be illegal. John, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
we
for
appreciate
the
taking
trip
the time
around
to
the
come
test center again for week 2. And I think you've learned a lot over the past 2 weeks as to what conforms and what doesn't conform according to USGA guidelines. And if you have a problem, just come up here and talk to John in Far Hills. He'll settle everything for you. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I'm Harry Donahue for John Spitzer. Hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Inside Golf. And remember, no matter how bad it's going for you out there or how thirsty you are, don't pick up. And we'll see you next week on Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management.
Inside Golf, presented by Susquehanna Wealth Management, helping you build, manage, and preserve wealth. And by the Philadelphia Section PGA, experts in the game and business of golf.